So I think this integrated camera, that's us. So go click on this and see if there's a drop down where it says integrated camera.
Yeah.
And then I think it's an Echo.
It's this USB device.
Is that right?
Yeah. And then Echo Counseling.
You guys ready? You guys ready, Juan? Okay, good evening, everyone. I would like to call the meeting to order, please. We do have a quorum. We have 5 members here. Juan, Anna, myself, Debbie, and Barry. I'm Jack Joyce, Chair of the committee. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Our first order of business is to consider and act upon approval of the minutes of the meeting of September 14th, 2016.
I move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion or a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Our next order of business is to consider and act upon an application from Renee A. Collin regarding tree removal in conjunction with the construction of a new single-family residence on the unimproved lot at 103 Hibiscus Lane, Castle Hills, Texas. Legal description CB 5778, Woods west of West, Lot 1B. What I propose we do, folks, is ask Mr. Collin and his team to make their presentation, and at that point, after that, we'll have the public hearing, so that everybody has the benefit of the information. So, Mr. Collin, if you folks would like to make your presentation, please do. Please, yes. Yeah, we're being live streamed, so it's important that you speak into the microphone.
Absolutely. So my name is John Policy, and I'm actually the general contractor representing Mr. Cullen. And the purpose of us being here is my client, Renee Cullen, bought a property at 103 Hibiscus Lane. It was an unimproved lot when we purchased it, and I helped him design a home, and we're looking to construct that home.
Okay.
The lot's a little over an acre in size. In total, basically, there were 53 trees in the lot, and overall, we were designing a home trying to suit his family's needs in the 4,600 square foot size range. That said, of the 53 trees on the lot, 2 of them would be affected by the home design. So we really took the utmost care and, you know, basically did everything we could within, you know, a reasonable design to try to protect the trees on his lot. It was not only very important to my client, but very important to us that we, you know, protect these trees. So what we've proposed with the design, and it is a unique shape, trying to, you know, kind of work in and out of the trees that were there, is really just try to protect what's there and make sure that if you look at the screen that Erica's showing now, the back left corner, there are 2 yellow marks, and those are the only 2 of the 53 trees that are affected by the home design. And there's certainly nowhere within the setback limitations where we could have, you know, put a home of any size without affecting one tree in one place or another. So there was certainly something that was real important to us, and you know, it wasn't like we took a plan off the internet or you know, we really started with the site, with the trees, and worked our way around that. In addition to that, my client has purchased the property next to him, and just basically holds that as green space, and he has no plans for future improvement. So basically he owns a total of, I believe it's about 2.5 acres, and only one of the lots will be affected at all.
So, I'm sorry, with a quick question. Do you
Sure.
mean the property between the home that's being constructed and Hibiscus?
No, sir. So my client's property is actually at the very back of the property, and there is a dedicated easement. Erica was just on that at this point. And so he owns just that small, thin easement getting back to his lot. There were 2 trees right in the middle of that easement, but there's no way to get around that. You know, those are in the easement. There's no way to wind or try to get around the trees that are in the middle of the easement. Basically, you would never be able to get a vehicle back to that site. Again, you know, a little over an acre of home site. I believe we had a 40-foot front setback limitation and a 20-foot rear setback limitation. You know, the overall footprint of the home, or the overall size of the home, garages, porches, patios, is 6,000 square feet. And you know, from my perspective, to only have to take down 2 trees to be able to construct a home of this size, I think really helps illustrate how much care we took in designing the home and really carefully managing it, you know, within the canopy that obviously was already in place.
Okay, so the bottom line is that there are 53 trees out there, and you're proposing to take 4 of them out.
That's correct. 2 of them, we have no choice because they're in the middle of a driveway or the easement. There's
Right.
no way to go around them. And then 2 for the actual home. Yes, sir. And in doing so, please note that we not only, took special care to avoid taking trees, but in addition to that, we also tried to be as mindful as possible as to which trees we took. In other words, there are certain trees that we looked at in size, say 7006, where they really, really wanted a fourth car garage, but opted to say, hey, you know what, this tree here that's 30 inches in diameter or thereabouts, we're going to say, hey, we're going to work around this and maybe give a little because this tree is so special. And we want it, on our property.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments for us?
I believe that's it. I appreciate your consideration in this
You bet.
matter, and, please know that we certainly worked above and beyond trying to, preserve the neighborhood and community.
Okay, good,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, I'd like to open the public hearing, please. Nobody has signed up to speak on this issue, but is there anyone who would like to speak on this? Okay. Yes, sir.
The intention of the reason that this exists was, as you'll remember, there was 17 homes planned on this site at one point, and the owner of the property that sold it to these owners broke it up into 5 pieces. We were fortunate now, we only have 3 new residences and the original house on the property. This property, it's closer to 2 to 2.5 on the overall acreage, but we got our wish and then some in preserving the greenery on that property. This has been a real dream come true for the neighborhood to be able to preserve as many trees as we have, and to have them come in and build a custom home and work around everything only took it one step further than we could have even hoped for. So I just wanted to say that we're extremely pleased we were able to accomplish this compared to putting a street up the middle, mowing it down and building 17 houses, roofs, and driveways.
Okay, thank you. Would you be kind enough to identify yourself, sir?
Thomas Fentress, 211 South Winston Lane.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's close the public hearing then. Members, any questions, discussion?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Is the agenda for this meeting merely to approve the removal of the 4 trees on the site? Is that the sole
That is
purpose of this
the
hearing?
scope of our approval this evening. sir.
I don't really understand the need for much discussion. They've gone out of their way to preserve the environment, so I would, is it permissible to make a motion yet?
Yes, I'd ask if there are any other comments.
I
but-
do. I just want to say, first of all, thank you. I thought what you did was exactly what we need to happen in our community. You have captured, to me, the essence of Castle Hills, which is important, and Thomas mentioned that later. I mean, from my perspective, there's no doubt that you worked really hard to create something that is not only appeasing to the neighborhood, but captures exactly what we want to be able to see. The work that you've done, and it's funny that we call, and we just came up with this nickname, right? It's WOW, West of West. You've captured the WOW. So congratulations on that, and I will support the motion that Mr. Barry will make, or I move approval at this point.
Okay, thank you for making the motion, Juan. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, folks. Right. Okay. The next item on our agenda then is to consider and act upon an application from Thomas G. Yantis, representing 6812 West LLC, regarding the construction of 2 office buildings and proposed signage at 6812 West Avenue, Castle Hills, Texas. Legal description CB 5778, Block 8, Lot Northeast, irregular, 200 feet of Lot 6. And as we did with the previous project, I would ask that the folks be kind enough to make their presentation first, and at that point, we'll open the public hearing.
My name's Malcolm Chesney. I go by Mac. This is one of my partners, Danny Long. We're both architects with Chesney Morales Partners. Just a small piece. I've worked for so many years for these principals of this project that I know them extremely well, and they're really quality people, and they do quality things. I believe y'all are somewhat familiar with it, so some of the slides are more not in the order of just showing you a site plan up front, but it's around a 2.5 acre lot. It's a little over 16.8 in square feet. It's got a very subtle loft in the back building, so it's not like a full-blown 2-story building. Projects have a tendency to somewhat design themselves. These buildings are nestled in the trees. We tried really hard to make it have, the trees add so much ambiance to any project that it's just foolish not to try to save as many as you can. And we worked hard to do that. So we'll go through what's there now, and in a minute we'll talk about what we're proposing. And I'll keep it short and answer your questions. That way you can talk about what you want to talk about. This is a perspective view. It's a 1-story up front on west, and the other one is tucked back behind into the trees. And it's a loft-type building with the center section popping up. And let's go to another slide. There's the 1-story that's up on the west side. Danny designed this project, and it was, there's a lot of so-called garden offices. They've gotten kind of passé, and some of them are not very exciting architecturally, but we try to do something a little bit upscale. It is a nod to residential architecture, but it's also attempting to be fresh and pleasant and soothing and attractive at the same time. So it's a combination of materials. There's a storyboard that we prepared that we could pass around at the commissioners if you want it up close, but it's like dry stack limestone, stucco, and soothing pastel type color. And we've had some really great luck with using hardy board and then painting it in very nice blended colors. And the inspiration for some of that came from a building one of our architects saw in White City, I think it is, right out at Los Alamos. And we got so excited about it. We used it on Randall Brooks Federal Credit Unions, and here it is as a very sophisticated financial, and we're using hardy board. But the way you treat it is the trick. But it's not the dominant. The roof is the gunmetal type, like it's G90 paint grip or Barrage paint grip looking. We'll see how the prices work out, but they're the same appearance. And this storyboard shows generally those materials that I just described, and they're reflected in that elevation. Let's go to the next one, Shannon, please. Okay, this is the same building, but it's the 1-story. Okay, sorry. Here we go. And the loft is about 3,200 feet, right at it. There we go. So we did work at keeping the scale of it down, and I think that it does that. Let's go to the site plan. I think that's probably as important as anything. We worked really hard to work these trees in and get good parking ratios. We went back and forth a lot of times, and I'd like Robert Copeland with NBC to address a couple of things, if he would, please.
It's y'all's pleasure. Would you like to see it up close?
Good evening. I'm Robert Copeland. As y'all know, what Matt kind of told you a little about, we've been here before. As you know, for the people that went here before, we already had a separate submittal approved for the trees. We went through the process, we went through all the trees, the site plan revisions. So at this point where we're at with the site plan, what I'd tell you is we meet all the parking requirements, we meet setback requirements. I told you we've had the trees approved. We've already met with the fire marshal, we have fire marshal approval. From a civil standpoint, we meet every single requirement we need to meet, and that's where we're at. If you have any specific questions, I can answer those. I could address we've been through this with y'all before, I know, so I don't want to keep repeating it to you, but, you know, the drainage, we did a green detention pond, we're detaining drainage so that we don't impact the folks downstream of us. We have a secondary access point, an agreement with the neighbor to the south of us there, where we can both have access to each other's site to get to West Avenue, just to make it more user-friendly for parking and ingress, egress.
Okay.
Any questions? Or?
I
Thank
think
you.
something that was really important is, I know it's important to y'all, and we recognize it, but when you save this many trees, it's hard to use regular pole lights that stick up. We're using tree lights. We furnished a photometric design. The good thing about tree lights is if you were to say, uh-oh, it's encroaching just a little bit, you just tilt it up. You just move it up and it gets off of them. So we're very much contained within just infinitesimal nearly amounts, and some of it's commercial anyway. And then on the front, this is not literal. We like to use these lights we get made in Austin. This is one on a ranch, but these would be taller. They'd probably be aluminum, but the idea is the light shines down, shines up, spills out the sides. It's just decoration. They don't add much, but it's more of a pedestrian type. And then on the backs, Barry would know what this is. A sundowner type downlight, which is a shielded. It's like a pyramid, and it's usually bronze, and it shines down. And there's several brands, but the sundowner is a good example of that because it's meant to not cast light out beyond down below it. So that's our lighting plan. You have anything to add? I'd rather answer your questions than just
Okay.
keep talking.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chesney.
Yes, sir.
I think that's great for now. I think, why don't we have our public hearing, and if the
Great.
members have any questions, we'll address it after the public hearing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, at this point, let's open the public hearing. And we do have a few citizens signed up. Of course, Mr. Chesney has just presented. Ms. Jaffet?
Yes, I'm Laverne Jaffet. I live at 12 Shady Cove, just off of West Avenue in the Garden Home section. I personally disapprove of this. Number one, our zoning ordinance, this particular piece of property is not zoned, evidently, in my perspective, as what you've presented. And I'm wondering, because it's an architectural review, that is to be comparable with the architecture, et cetera. And don't think we have anything like that in our area. And I just don't believe that this perspective is the right zoning for the area. That's all residential. That's all residential in that area. And I just feel like that this particular thing does not belong in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jaffet. Brother Dooley?
Thank you, Mr. Joyce. Brother William Dooling, 201 Gladiola Lane. And essentially, I'm just echoing what Laverne said. I mean, architecturally, I think it's beautiful, and just like the previous project, I think it adds. So there's all those things. But the big problem is commercial development in the middle of a residential street, albeit it's West Avenue. And so there's been some research on this, and I just think it needs to be said now. It's not germane, perhaps, to this body, but I think it's germane to the project. in that, and Janet was very diligent in ferreting out what purports to be a grandfathered country store on West Avenue in 1951. Apparently, there is nothing after that. And it says, everything in Castle Hill, this was 65 years ago, that every property in Castle Hills would be residential except those with some subdivision restriction and except those businesses. Doesn't say properties, just businesses, which now exist and it's a two-part thing. They exist and are now operating within the city of Castle Hills. Well, I heard the gentleman say about the parking. There's different parking. There's, I believe, 4, I don't know, categories of commercial. I don't think there's any document that can tell anybody whether this is zoned industrial, professional office. There's a couple more that just don't come to my mind at the moment, but general business, and I think there's one other. And because those affect the parking and on all the rest of it, but what's it zoned for? And it's never been zoned. It was grandfathered in as a country store that existed on West Avenue when it was out in the sticks, and it just continued on. And then at some time it morphed into something else, but without any permission or as near as can be determined by city staff that was asked to look into this. So I think that needs, and I don't necessarily have a problem per se, but I just, as you know, I'm a lawyer and it just kind of bothers me when there's no legal underpinning for something and you just go on down the road and kick the can. And I think if there's going to be commercial development in the middle of West Avenue, then it needs to go before zoning and get it done properly, because as near as I can tell, 65 years ago, they said the little grocery store that exists there can continue to operate. And that's all. It never said anything was zoned commercial. It just said those businesses. But this is not a grocery store, country store. And that was all that was allowed, and that's the only thing that was said for 65 years. Thanks.
Thank you, brother. Any other members of the public care to speak? Okay, thank you, folks. At this point, let's close the public hearing.
You do that so well.
And may I invite Janet to sort of bring us up to date on the zoning question that's been raised and help us understand what's going on.
I didn't research through every city council meeting from beginning of time to present. Gotten near the 60s and did not pursue it any further. This document basically shows that the city council at that time, anything that was currently being used as commercial came into the city as a commercial property. I do have zoning maps going back as far as 61, and they, all of them forward, from 61 forward, all depict the property as a commercial property. So that's, we do not have, and we have yet to locate a zoning map from the 50s. We only have them from 61 forward.
Okay. Could you please repeat that, Janet? Ms. Jaffe can't hear you.
I did go back and look through city council minutes, only to maybe the early 60s. I did find this reference from October 11th, 1951, and where they said if it was existing as a commercial property in Castle Hills at the time that the city incorporated, that it would be zoned as a commercial property. And I have the language here. That's a rough translation on my part. We don't have a zoning map from that time period. The earliest zoning map we can locate is 1961. All zoning maps that we can locate from 61 forward continue to show the property as a commercial property.
Okay. So for over 50 years, the city's been showing it as a commercial property.
Yes, sir, and we did visit with our legal counsel, who agreed that if this is all we have, that it was sufficient to consider it to be zoned. Because when we started the process with our applicant, we looked at this pretty heavily.
Okay. So staff is comfortable with it, and our legal counsel is comfortable with the
Yes, sir.
interpretation of it as a commercial property suitable for this kind of development?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very well, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
It's been a while, but I know we rewrote the zoning ordinances several years ago because I was on that committee. I was under the understanding that forthcoming would be updated zoning map in which all properties within the city of Castle Hills had a zoning designation. I'm a little bit uncertain why this is such a unusual piece of property. It's in the heart of Castle Hills that it doesn't have a zoning designation.
It does on the map. It is shown to be a G General Business District.
Well, then, what is the dispute about it not meeting the city's zoning requirements? Is that just an opinion, legal opinion?
It's just a discussion that has come up several times at various meetings, even going back to the property next door to it, which is zoned a single family. But that generated a conversation a year or two ago when 6818 was going to be developed as a commercial property, and they were requesting a zoning change. And so we were getting comments from citizens, which precipitated us going to make this research and seek some answers.
Well, this isn't the purview of our committee, but it certainly seems to me like if the city has a city engineer, that somebody get a clear and concise zoning map dedicated to all properties within the city. So this will be without dispute of any kind in the future.
Thank you, Ben.
Mr. Chairman, I've got 6 areas to go over. Okay, so let's go with the easy stuff. Tell us in terms, Mr. Chesney, or whoever's the representative is going to come forward. Let's go with activity. Tell me in terms of activity what you anticipate with this office complex. Is it weekday only? Do you anticipate weekends?
Subject to leasing, but general office type. And, you know, the Mosaic development, the primary developers, Mr. Yanis, is going into the back building on the ground floor, for example. And they're a light use, you know, general office type. I'm not sure that's answering your question. I hope it is.
It's close. I mean, basically, we just want to know, you know, in terms of the activity that's going to be now falling into West Avenue off that street. Obviously, West Avenue has a certain capacity, and we just want to make sure, I just wanted to know what's going to be the impact to the area. So subject to leasing is kind of vague and open, but you generally think in terms of office buildings?
Office, yes, sir.
Professionals?
Professional, I assume you could, I mean, there won't be a cleaners in there. I mean, it's an office building.
All right.
It's
So
office.
second question leads into the area that tell us the number of trees you were able to preserve with the number of trees that you were able to preserve with your design.
The number of trees we were able to serve,
Is there a number?
do you know, Robert? I do not know.
I mean, we just went through that other presentation where we saw they
Yes, sir.
preserved.
I apologize, I don't have that information. We came back specifically just for that, came through this whole process of the trees. I want to say we saved 70% of the trees. 70%. Committee on this, yeah.
Okay. I saw that, but I just want to be, just
Yeah,
a
it's
sheer
about
number.
70%. We saved all the heritage trees and 70%, yes, sir.
In terms of the materials that you're going to utilize, I was quite impressed with the design. The
Sir.
materials that you're utilizing, I think are well done and complementary to the area. I think, you know, I like the overall ambiance that they're going to provide. It's a soft, subtle essence that it will be retraining, and that's what we're here for, right?
Yes,
The
sir.
architectural reviews, and so I commend you on that.
Thank you.
But it leads to the big question, so tell me about the sign and the
Okay.
signage and what you anticipate seeing for that one.
The sign is, I don't know if you presented it, However,
I found it. I was looking
Yeah.
for it, and I finally
We-
found this part.
we believe that we've met your ordinance, and it's not real big, and your allowance is, I don't remember the exact square footage, but it seemed like it was something like 4 by 8, or, wasn't very large, 30 feet or 40 feet. 40 feet? Okay, so it's in the, it's in the entry drive in that island, and we're very careful, and believe me, someone has my seal on there, very interested that it's enough viewing so that you don't have a dangerous
And there
exiting.
isn't any illumination on it, correct?
It's ground lighted.
Okay.
or
Just on the ground, okay.
Well, let me say it this way, let me back
Define
up.
that for me.
It's so tight there that, and the lighting would probably come from the top and shine down. But it's not meant to be garish at all. I mean, this is a very sophisticated development. And
Agreed.
we just did the Bank San Antonio, and we're very proud of it. And the sign out in front of that is very subtle, softly lit. So it's not exactly the same, but that kind of gives you the aura of what the intention is. It's rock with letters, and I think we can't get enough ground light, so we do it off the top. That's still subject to a little bit of research, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it's going to go.
Tell me a little bit more about the lighting in the trees that you
Okay.
spoke about, because that,
We'll do low voltage, LED, excuse me, low voltage, that's on another my brain. But we actually submitted a light study, we know with foot candles.
correct.
To your officials. And again, to me, that will be very sophisticated. That'll be very residential in scale. I do a lot of high-end residential, and I'm very sensitive to that. But tree lights are subtle, and the ambiance, again, is more important. We want enough lighting to be safe, but no more.
Okay. And the other question that I had, in terms of the big question to me is always about the drainage, right? So the capacity that I read, if you want to come back up, is for the 50-year or the 100-year? What was the capacity of the retention pond that you all created? And how, in your estimation, does it flow for you?
Yes, sir. What we did is we designed a detention pond in the rear. It's an earthen basin. We did that to save more trees. It's an earthen basin. Currently, our site sheet flows on the neighbor behind us. We're going to release it in a sheet flow manner also. Our post-development flow rate will be less than our pre-development flow rate, and we designed that for a 100-year storm event.
So you anticipate after I mean, because obviously for me, it's a question of when you have, pervious, now impervious, and then you have the issue of where it's gonna go. So you anticipate, how many parking spots are we talking about when you have the total
We have
area there?
64.
64?
Yes, sir.
And you are projecting, based on your analysis, that you're gonna have less of a flow that was there today?
Yes, sir. We will have the same or less. That's exactly what we do. That's why we build the basin.
All right.
Yes, sir.
And so it's going to be directed to the basin to be able to retain it and then slowly release over days afterwards, which is what a retention
Exactly.
pond does.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right.
And there's, in the one that you have is created for a 100-year flood, so therefore, that pretty much is what, the highest we can go anyway, so.
What we actually do is we designed it to convey a 100-year and even safely pass another 100-year back to back. It's kind of overkill, but that's the way we do it. It would
All right.
sheet flow over the top and still sheet flow on the property behind us.
And right now, you said that the sheet flow goes to the neighbor.
Yes, there's
So-
a residential property behind us, directly behind us.
What conversations have you had with them about that potential impact or minimal impact?
I had no conversation with them.
Okay.
Yeah, we do everything in accordance. I know your design criteria. We were the city engineer about 20 years ago, for 20 years for Castle Hills. I'm real familiar with detention, working with the church, and all the problems we had with that. And the way we design it, we absolutely ensure that it leaves the property the same, it sheet flows onto them, and we're going to detain the flow. There'll be no
Okay.
increase in water surface.
Sir, I believe that knocks out my list.
Thank you, Juan. Any other questions, members? Yes, Barry?
I'm sorry, didn't put on the mic. As far as the tree preservation, they've got a tree preservation plan, and it does define the amount of total caliper inches and what's preserved, and it is at 69 point plus preservation. Very nice job on preservation. Did I understand these plans, Robert, to be a continuous apron? There was no driveways as such in any of this property along this frontage?
The entire frontage was a driveway, and we're just maintaining the driveway to access the site. We're removing all the other concrete to become green area.
So you don't,
Along the front of the building right now, if you saw those photographs earlier, those existing, that old house, I think one was a salon or something.
yeah, I know what it's like. I just wanted to ask you, under these circumstances, you're reducing the amount of traffic to a funneled spot, and you don't need to get any approval on the driveway.
No, sir, you're exactly right. We reduced the ingress, egress points, which makes it a safer deal. You're exactly right, Mr. Middleman. We have one access point now.
And you've given you've been granted cross-access from your neighbor?
Correct, yes, sir.
Is that like a dedicated legal document of cross-access?
Yes, sir, they have a shared, it's a legally recorded instrument which has shared ingress, egress to each other's project.
And no matter if you or the neighbor sells the property, it goes along with the sale of the
It goes
property?
along with it. The only way it could go away is if both people agree to it. We don't need it. One access point was more adequate for what we needed.
Well, you
It
did.
was just a user-friendly deal, and also it helps the neighbor. It just makes things smoother.
Well, you don't want a dead-end parking lot.
Right, exactly.
I think you've done a really good job personally. You've preserved